Hi, everybody, and welcome to an episode of Peer Review, a sub-series in the RXP podcast. My name is Tiffany, and I'm your host for this episode of Across the Spiderverse. I'm here with my co-host, Alex.
Who across the Spiderverse?
And Matt.
What's up?
Are you saying that the full title is Spider-Man Across the Spiderverse?
Exactly. Just like how it's Marvel Spider-Man 2.
Oh my god.
Oh my gosh, tomato. Okay, so, y'all, the crew here are Marvel fans, some more than others. However, we also all love Spider-Man. And
It's true.
we have a beautiful movie that came out in June of 2023 called Spider-Man Across the Spiderverse, part 1 of a 2-part situation with Spider-Man Beyond the Spiderverse coming out next year in March, or March 2024, for everyone listening in the future, so you're not confused. So I'm gonna start the conversation going here.
Do it.
Oh, I do need to tell everyone that this is a spoiler-filled review. All the spoilers are happening. We're going to talk about our emotions, about everything that happened in this movie, and we're talking about plot beats and everything. So here's your warning now. Go watch the movie, then come back and listen to this episode. Okay, we got that out of the way. So overall thoughts on this. Overall thoughts. Dare I go first?
Do it.
Okay.
I want you to go first.
Here we go. It is June 2023 recording this video. It is the best movie I've seen this year. I've seen about 10 movies, I think, in 2023. Actually, 9. I've seen about 9 movies. And it was so good. It had everything that I wanted. It had emotions, it had family, it had spider people. Like it felt like a huge Spider-Verse. I got to visit a lot of different locations beyond Miles Morales' homeworld. The art style was beautiful and captivating. I loved that you could see each world having their own distinct art style. It really hit. And I also very much loved all the nods and Easter eggs, and of course the fact that this felt like a Spider-Gwen story or a Ghost Spider story. Gwen Stacy was a huge part of this movie, and I was not expecting it, and I'm not mad that it happened. I loved seeing that perspective. So for me, huge props to this movie. I cannot wait for the sequel. Is anyone going to try to refute my love and hype for this movie right now? I'll understand if you're not the highest hype as me, but if you're going to say this is thumbs down, get out.
I want Alex to go next.
All right.
This man here is I didn't like this movie. That's what he's about to say.
Tiffany mentioned Beyond the Spider-Verse is coming out in March 2024, but I can't wait that long because I'm going to go beyond her opinion of it, and I'm going to say this is the best animated movie I've ever seen, period. I think this does a lot in terms of, and I'm specifically talking about animated movies because I think, despite there being such classics, obviously Shrek, the Shrek movies, great movies.
Yeah. Classic movies.
A lot of Pixar movies, including Cars, the Cars trilogy, the magnum opus of Pixar.
You always bring it back to Cars.
I love Cars.
We've been recording for 3 years now, or 2 years? How long has it been? 3 years?
Yeah.
However long it's been, you've talked about Cars at least once or twice each year.
I love Cars, okay? I just have to represent the minority of us out there that love Cars and love Owen Wilson.
He won the Piston Cup. He did what in this cup?
Yeah, exactly.
That's such a classic line.
Yeah.
Sorry, go on.
But even despite, my love of Cars, just Shrek, the perennial classic, right? Eddie Murphy, Mike Myers. There's things that Across the Spider-Verse does that I think only animated movies can do, and that is its representation, its flexibility in visuals in addition to
Yes.
the acting, and it's that the fact that Across the Spider-Verse has so many different themes, not just from character backgrounds, but also inherent styles, right? Like all of these are animated in different ways, especially when we get to the part in Spider-Man 2099's world where we have like the basically Spider HQ with the almost infinite amount of Spider-Men, Spider-Women, every version of Spider that can exist, even Peter Park's car, right, making a cameo
Yes.
appearance. And the fact that you can bring all these distinct styles and have them animated in their own ways, but also despite the mess of visual cacophony, if you will, that it all comes together and gives a very good message of saying, we can still have a strong story, we can still give you a very strong visual story as well, not just through the acting, but also the actual visuals, obviously reflecting that, and the fact that you never lose sight of what the story is about. I think you would think with all of these different styles, it's going to be hard to read. You can't tell what's going on. You're right. The colors are flashing. If you have epilepsy, maybe there should be a warning in the front of the movie to warn people. It's like, be aware, there's a lot of flashing colors, a lot of flashing lights. It might induce something. But despite all that, it has a very heartwarming story that keeps you gripped the whole time. And I think that's my biggest takeaway. This is such an incredibly well-paced movie that I never felt it dragged at points, at least for me. And I think that's why I put it so high, is that there was never a point where I could say like, oh, they could have skipped past this, oh, they could have spent less time on this. I think it was appropriate length, and they spent just the right amount of time on every part.
Yeah, man.
I think this is a great movie. I just want to start with that. Like this, I have been following with my goal this year. I've been ranking my movies. This is the best movie I have seen all year. I agree with Tiffany. I would give this a 9 out of 10. And I think that is a huge setback from what you both had said to me that you got. So I knew I was going to come in this a little bit more negative.
10 out
Hear
of
me
10.
out, though. Hear me out. Because I do think that this is an amazing movie. 9 out of 10 to me is an amazing movie. I would recommend this to anyone. I would recommend this to my parents. I would recommend this to their parents if they were alive. Like, I would be recommending it to everyone.
Peter's parents.
That I meet. Yeah. Aunt May.
Yeah.
Uncle Ben.
Yeah. You might be
depending on the universe.
You're recommending it to our audience here at RXP Podcast.
And not to spoil, I would recommend this to everyone listening. But I will say, I think the animation style, next to none. This is honestly a step towards animation that I've never seen, and I thought I saw it all after the first Inside the Spider-Verse. Was it Inside the Spider-Verse?
No, it was
Into the Spider-Verse.
So Into the Spider-Verse, I thought I saw it all. I was like, this is amazing. I can't imagine this animation style getting even better. It ramped it up to 11, and I was so exhausted at the end of this movie because there's so much on screen all the time, and I loved it, and my eyes were feeding and just enjoyed every single moment with just my eyes. It was awesome. So good. I thought that the new characters that they brought in, fantastic. I thought that, I know we'll probably talk about some of them.
Yes.
Spider-Punk, awesome. Great character. Couldn't understand half the words he was saying. That's probably part of his persona. We'll move on. We'll talk more about him later. What I will say, though, the one thing I do disagree with you guys on, one, I don't think it's a perfect movie. And two, I don't anticipate this being my top movie of the year. One, because I have a lot of anticipated movies still yet to go. We have Oppenheimer and Barbie as a double feature in just a couple weeks. And I'm not thinking Barbie's going to sneak into the number one spot, but I have a feeling that Oppenheimer might. But with that, and this is kind of one of these things that I struggle with quite a bit when it comes to part ones of series. In this movie, I was a little bit worried that I would feel that this is a part one, and I did. Like, I felt like at the end of this story, I was like, okay, why am I waiting until March? I should be watching March right now. And with that, I feel like it was a huge, beefy movie for a part one, and I didn't really care for the pacing all that well. Like, I think the part with Miles Morales and his family, while heartwarming and stuff, I would have cut it. I would have cut some of it.
The
That's
barbecue?
just a personal preference. Yeah, 100%. There's parts that I would definitely find some fluff to cut. And I think because it was a part one, they kept it in, and that's great. I just think it hurt it in the long run. I'm not saying, like, listen to me. It's still a 9 out of 10, which is a really fantastic rating for me. That's like really, really good. It will be the best animated movie this year, and it will be in my top 6 towards the end of the year when we talk about our media outside of video games. I have a feeling. But just to play that other voice that's not super positive, I don't know if it's a perfect movie, but man, am I happy to watch it.
Dang, that barbecue gave us that wonderful quip. She looks like she's old enough to vote. Listen, this movie had a lot of like one-liners, and just like the writing was phenomenal. I like laughed a lot. I cried a lot. It was very emotional for me.
And I want to counter Matt's point about the pacing, because for me, and I do understand the, I guess, syndrome of, as you said, right, it being a part one, that maybe the ending doesn't come to a satisfying conclusion. But I think looking at the course of this movie, and why I considered it well paced, is that it does such a good job of at least putting you, right, like, as any linear storytelling is, right, it's a roller coaster. You're going through this, you're on a track, you're going from point A to point B, there's going to be ups and downs, and right, you're eventually going to reach the end, and then you get off the ride. But in this case, right, it's like we're not off the roller coaster just yet. Like, we've gone through the massive buildup, we've gone down like the massive spirals, the loop-de-loops, what have you, but we're still on the ride because it's not done yet. And on top of that, we're just at like a plateau section. And I feel like a lot of roller coasters have those built in, right? Because they put you through so much in the first section that they need like a calm, part where you level out, and then it, dips again. Then you start doing a few more sections before you reach the end. And I feel like Across the Spiderverse did just that, where we went through so much in this first part that we're at that calm point, right? And I would say too, I'm not satisfied by the ending in some ways, right? Because it's not the end of the story. Just like you, I want to know how Miles and Gwen's and even Miguel's story ends, right? Like, after all this, like all the men across every Spider-Verse out there. But despite that, us reaching this calm point gives me that break, right? To be like, man, I went through so much, I need to process it. And now, I have the time to do it. What I would have liked to see it later this year, of course. But, maybe they're still working on Beyond the Spider-Verse. So, yes, give those animators all the time they need. Continue working on, continue polishing it. But at least for me, I appreciate this calm point that we're at.
The problem that I have with part ones and part twos, which I'm with you, Alex. Like, I think that we are on a wild ride, and like, yes, cliffhangers. I'm not hating on it just because it's a cliffhanger at the end, right? That, well, we just got this huge reveal, and then boom, turn to credits. I think the biggest problem that I have with part ones is that in a normal movie, in my mind, climax might happen somewhere between like the second quarter to the third quarter, when you're looking just like straight as like a timeline of a movie, of like when a huge climax will happen, maybe it'll dip down and then rise up for the final like huzzah. And the problem with part ones is that the climax always happens right at the end, right at the movie. And I think that Prowler reveal, which was awesome, honestly, one of my highest moments of this movie was when he finds his uncle, and they're like starting to put these little things in your mind of thinking, is this his world or is he somewhere else? He sees his uncle, then they start talking about his hair, and you're like, what what's happening here? What's everything? And then when he thinks, oh, my uncle is the Prowler in this world too, and it's not, because this world doesn't have a Spider-Man, and in this world that doesn't have a Spider-Man, Miles Morales becomes the Prowler. Like, that is a huge reveal, and that's like such an awesome reveal, and I loved it. I thought that was honestly one of my favorite moments. I was hyped in that seat. I was like, yes, like that is something I wasn't even thinking on my radar that he would run into a Miles Morales. That's not a good guy. Like, we have our big bad of next, what I would presume would be the big bad of the third movie. The problem is, then it didn't let any room to breathe. Then it was cut to chase, like boom, credits. In a normal movie, you would reveal that. It might settle a little bit. He might get out of that situation somewhat quickly. And then it's like, how do we then build our final ascent to face himself? Like, I don't like how we as like a society, and I think a lot of this comes down to, how do we make money? We make more movies. How do we make more movies? We expand every project into these bloated part 1s, part 2s, part 3s. And I just don't like it. I think it really dilutes storytelling, in my opinion.
So would it have sit better with you if he like got out of that room, busted outside, and then looked at the landscape and seen like the other world? Because I feel like also that would be kind of cliche. But I don't know. Like, what's your thought on that?
I almost like wish like it happened 15, 20, 30 minutes earlier. However he's going to get out, and if he like limps out and he's like starting to realize like he maybe runs away from the Prowler and his uncle, and he gets away somehow, and he's like standing on where he like maybe his school in this dimension, and he's like, this is not my world. How am I going to get back? And then cut to credits. Like that, just like, I need a little room to breathe with like this huge climactic, like earth-shattering and story-shattering truth that Miles Morales is potentially the protagonist and antagonist of the third
story.
movie. Yeah, and like, which, oh man, it just like thinking about it though, like honestly, like I sound super negative, and I promise you I'm not super, I'm super high on this movie. That moment is like giving me chills just thinking of like that Prowler reveal. Honestly, one of my favorites in the entire movie.
Real talk though for everyone. Like, when did you guys figure out, or like, did you figure out that he was in the wrong place? I didn't catch the fact that apparently the machine, which by the way, that machine is freaking terrifying. The giant robot spider that comes down and weaves a web around you to transport you back to your universe. I didn't catch the fact that it was going to like World 42. Like, did anyone see? I did not see that on the screen at all. But Alex told me he did.
I saw it, but it didn't
didn't
register in my mind because I wasn't keeping track of like the numbers. Like, which one is this Miles World Earth from?
Well, I thought it was weird at the beginning of the movie. Like, they were like picking up the spider, and like it was very evident 42 was on the spider's itself.
Body. Yeah.
And like, so how I actually watched Into the Spider-Verse the night before, and I'm like, I don't remember it being like that dramatic
of the
like
number
42 on that. And I was like, that's weird that they're like really wanting to explain that. I was like, oh, maybe the multiverse, like, you know how Marvel loves those random numbers.
Yes.
But it makes so sense. And they've been showing it this entire time, and it never registered.
So I started getting the vibe. I'm like, he's not at the right place. He is not at the right place, even though the way that they were overlaying the different like Miguel and Spider-Woman and Ben, like the weird emo spider boy going into Miles's world and Gwen showing up, you know, like even they were overlaying that very seamlessly. When Miles was about to drum up the courage to tell his mom, I was like, he's not at the right place. Because they were kind of dragging out, like, I have something to tell you. I know that you said to believe in me. And it wasn't even that comment, like, what'd you do to your hair? Even though that is literally a giveaway. It was him just, like, kind of, you know, you told me to figure out who I am. And I was like, God, this ain't it. And then she was like, who's Spider-Man? I was like, no! Like, I literally, like, clutched people around me. it was wild. Like it.
I started realizing when each character kind of like the hair part, I was like, that's just such a weird thing. Like,
Yeah.
he's had the same hair since the first movie. Pay attention. You know what I mean?
Just an absent mother.
Yeah. That's right.
Because she's a single mom, Alex. She has to hustle for the family.
That's true. That's true.
Can I just say that the parent, like seeing a little bit more of the parents this time around was, for me, I know like maybe some of the barbecue could have been cut a bit, but I really liked seeing them. And I'm not going to lie, I was terrified this entire movie that Miles' dad was going to die. Like,
oh yeah.
Like I was just waiting for it to happen.
I mean, his dad will die, just not in this movie.
No, stop it.
Maybe. Like that's what they want us to think.
It has
right?
to happen.
There has to be a canon event.
Yeah.
But like maybe not. Maybe not.
I guess
because they like Miguel, like I don't know.
They do hint at that, and I want to bring this back to wrap up the point about not having, I guess, enough breathing room with the, I guess, arc of Miles' story.
Ending. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think part of that is because, right, a lot of this movie, and I would say it's probably more like 70-30 or maybe 60-40, is that this is also Gwen's movie, right? Like, we start with her, we follow her journey, and, like, the end of her arc, right, is getting the crew together from the original, into the Spider-Verse, plus, some new additions. And I feel like they wanted to, I guess, close that arc for her, and they did, right? Like, we resolved it, and in that case too, right, part of her story is that her canon event is kind of being avoided,
manipulated,
right?
Yeah.
Right, yeah. Like, her father was captain, and they said, like, typically when, like, whoever's father becomes captain of the police department, they pass, right? Like, that's part of it. But in this case, right, they changed that fate just due to, like, her actions, right? And so I think for her and her coming to that realization of what she decided to do and what she ended up doing was able to kind of change the course of her life, and maybe not necessarily, her canon event could be something else, right? Like, maybe there is one, but it's not necessarily her father dying. That the same thing could be for Miles, where it's like not his father dying, but due to his actions, something else might be the canon event, and maybe in that case, I feel like the most pessimistic interpretation is, as they brought up a lot of the time, and especially when they have the touching moment where they're hanging upside down, is that Gwen's gonna pass in the third movie, and like that'll be the canon event for Miles. And like I feel like there's a lot of implications there that they spent so much time on. She brought it up to be like, hey, every universe I went to, I see Gwen dies a lot, and so maybe that's, like, she hopes that's not herself, but that could be her for Miles.
Yeah.
It's like always so strange, like, because I feel like it's always a subject in different video games and different movies, is like destiny or fate.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's always these movies where we think, okay, it has to be this, or maybe it's this, and then it's always some twisted, like, they hired a lawyer to be like, okay, I want you to see this story, and I want you to find a loophole from this Miguel character, and then that's what's going to actually make it into the final cut. So they could go so many ways, because in my mind, I almost thought Miles' canon event would have been his uncle, like that was like pretty crazy way for him to die in the first movie, that really like set him on the path of being Spider-Man. And so I don't know, but no one's safe. Not even Spider Noir.
I'm so glad he's back. So kind of going to that, like, do you guys think they're going to try to give us even more characters? Or are we good? Are we Gucci?
I'm good.
I'm good.
Because I want Spider Pig back.
Spider
from the
Ham.
First movie.
Spider Ham.
Oh, Spider Ham. Sorry.
Yeah. Or John Mulaney.
Spider Pig's in Family Guy, right? I wonder.
He's
like,
gonna appear too. That's canon.
That is canon. Because John Mulaney was in rehab, like, for the longest time, and I wonder if that played into a role of why Spider Ham wasn't as big of a role in this movie. So I don't know. Like, he's in the little cast of characters that then I hope he does, because man, I forgot how much Spider Ham made
the first one.
movie. Yeah,
Yeah.
so good. So good.
I mean, they did use a voice quote of Spider-Ham / John Mulaney like in near the end or at one point in the movie. So like there was that. And also like I really like Penny Parker and like
yeah.
not having Spider Noir, like that was I was like, where are they? But at the same time, like I'm okay with giving these new cast of characters kind of an intro and then bringing them back, because I'm not gonna lie, you guys, it reminds me a la Infinity War and Endgame, where how in like Infinity War you like barely got like Captain America or, you know, Black Widow kind of thing. Like it was like they took mostly center stage the second movie because they were like the only ones left. So that's the kind of vibe I got when I was like watching this. Yeah, since we're good with all these characters, like any character highlights that you guys want to like shout out and give mad props to.
Like, I think let's just start off with Spider-Punk. Like,
yes,
I think the MVP of
100%.
like new characters.
Yes,
I love the vibe, the art style, amazing. I love the art style. I love when he pulls off his mask and they're like protecting his identity.
Yeah.
Just to reveal it at the end. I like or you know, like later on.
Yeah.
I thought that was so funny. I laughed so hard at that little joke. I just really enjoyed the vibe of Spider-Punk. I will say, I don't know, I was watching in an older theater, so I don't know if this was part of the problem. The sound mixing, I was having a hard time hearing / understanding.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if it was the theater I was watching in. I'm excited to watch it at home just to see if it changes a little bit. But I feel like there's some gold in there that I just completely missed.
That's a shame.
Because everything I listened to, it was amazing.
Yeah, because like I saw some news articles saying that there were some theaters that, you know, they're like, please play it at this level or something, and it's not working, or not being shown appropriately because it's not, the sound settings aren't optimal. But I understood most of what he was saying. You know, it was a lot of like, yo, bruv, what up? You know, I don't know. Like, that's like a terrible
what a
accent.
great Cockney accent.
Yeah, no, it wasn't Cockney though. Like he didn't have a Cockney
Spider-Punk,
accent.
is that you?
Yeah, exactly. What I loved about Spider-Punk, number one, the fact that all along he was supporting Miles the entire movie. He was like the only one that was on his side. Number two, when he was taking parts from the Sanctum or like the Spider Den or whatever it's called, I don't even know if it has a name, but when he was taking parts and like making stuff, I was like, that's something important. But like I didn't imagine that it was going to be his own version of like a teleporter, which was really cool to see. And then number three, when he took off his mask finally and Miles was just like, how are you even cooler like under the mask? Like I laughed so hard. I was like, he does look freaking cool. Like the definition of punk. He was so great. Like it was almost a shame that we got so little of him in the second half.
But hey, there's always a third movie. Always a third movie.
That's true. He's Team Morales, you know? Alex, no opinions about Spider-Punk?
I mean, I liked him, but honestly, I liked Miguel more.
What?
Okay.
And I say this because really, you know, Miguel is not Spider-Man 2099. He is not a villain per se, but he is essentially the antagonist, right? Like, you know, pseudo antagonist for most of the movie. He is the
antagonist.
Yeah, but he's not really an antagonist. So he like plays the antagonist role, but he's not an antagonist, right? Like he's still a hero in a way.
Okay.
But I think it's because of the way, and the reason I like him more, like he's my favorite new character they added, because I really appreciate good, I guess, villains in that sense, because really there's no point for any hero to exist unless there is like something to like challenge them. And I know in this case, right, like obviously we're just gonna skip over the Spot, even though the Spot is like the actual antagonist.
Yeah,
he's
that's
the
a
real
whole
antagonist of the whole thing.
We got to talk about the Spot, but that's later. He's not my favorite character though.
Right. But I'm saying he's the real antagonist. So like Miguel is not an antagonist, especially in view of the Spot. But I really appreciate when they show like, especially like, right, he's an older character. He's wizened. he's gone through a lot more, and maybe he's a little bit cuckoo, maybe he's like too deep like into the web, right, because of having mapped it all out and seeing like I've traveled to so many different universes, and I've seen so many different things, and I've come to this conclusion, right, that these have to happen. He's very by the books of like, this is the only way to maintain order, and a lot of that might be restricting in how he acts, but also I appreciate that kind of tortured self, because it goes to show, right, like not everyone can be happy, not to say like everything needs to be dark and dreary. I'm not, a nihilist in that perspective, but it shows, right, like there are going to be the versions of Spider-Man that aren't just the hero, but like they're the hero with the pains, right? Like, similar to one of Matt's favorite characters, like Batman, right? Like a lot of how they build that hero up is through his pains and faults. And I feel like that they do the same thing for Miguel to like show, right? Like he tried to find a way to make himself happy, right? To like, find his family, like find the universe where he ends up quote unquote not dying, right? And then he gets to live out with his family, and then, right, everything unravels and he realizes, oh, it can't be, right? Because it was, in this case, destiny for him to lose, right, to pass away, especially in that world. And so I like those perspectives because it shows the stakes as well, right? Like they have to go through certain things. Like you can't have everything. And I feel like that's really the main core of it, right? Like especially with how Miles, follows Gwen like through the portal, and he's like, oh, I just wanted to like continue to hang out with you, even though like you just ran off, and that a lot of this stems from like trying to like want to have everything for yourself, but then realizing, oh, sometimes it isn't like that, right? It's like things have to happen a certain way, and not everything has to be 100% that way, but you can't be selfish.
I mean, Miguel,
I think he's a good anti-hero. Like I think if you can find a superhero has the best anti-heroes, I think Spider-Man's top of the list. Like he's got people like Morbius, he's got Venom, he's got Kraven. Like these are all potentially not evil completely. They have questionable antics that put them into the more antagonist over protagonist. But at the end of the day, like I think he is someone who has logic behind him, I guess. I didn't like him. Like I didn't, and I think that's what the movie wanted me to do. Like
yeah,
I don't think that we were supposed to sympathize him too much, or if they did, I didn't. Like I was like, this guy obviously
has
needs
a
to
chip
think
on
through
his
all these things.
Yeah, he has a chip on his shoulder.
But I think he was super effective, and I think oh gosh, now I'm blanking on the actor who voices him.
Oscar Isaac.
Oscar Isaac. Ah, gosh.
Phenomenal.
Because he's like in his own multiverse of wonderfulness, because he's like double dipping everywhere, and it's all great. And he did an awesome job. Awesome job. I do think he will become more of an antagonist. You can tell. He is going to be a huge antagonist
he went off
this next movie.
The rocker near the end of that movie. Like just in his eyes alone.
Yeah, he was about to like murder some preteens, you know?
Exactly. Well, kind of going back to like the spot, can I just say the fact that they tied in this villain's origin story from the first movie, like chef's kiss.
I kind of love that.
I
love it's the bagel guy.
Yeah, I absolutely love that it's the bagel guy.
I love how he's like he can't be taken seriously. He's like, I lost my job. I lost my wife and kids. Like, he's like, this is so extra, and I love it.
And he's just like, why am I the villain of the week? Like, he's like, I'm just trying to do my thing. And one of my favorite things that happened during that whole beginning interaction was also the fact that he brought up the whole fact, or was it Miles that said, like, why do people say ATM machine? Like, that's just a machine.
Yeah.
And then they swing it, they circle it back with freaking, I don't even remember what his spider name is, but in Mumbattan, and he's just like, why do people say chai tea?
Oh, chai tea. Yeah.
It's just tea. Like, that was so fun. Like, when jokes, like, swing around like that and come full circle, like, it's just it took it over the edge for me. I was like, yo, this is so entertaining.
This actually brings something else to mind. Runner-up for best new character,
Yes.
Spider-Man India.
Yes. What's his name? We gotta figure this out.
I don't know.
I gotta figure this out.
I just love that he's perfect and he lives a perfect life
yes.
and nothing goes wrong and he wakes up and he looks beautiful and he's like, what do you mean? I live the best life. I like have a girlfriend and she's amazing. And like, it's just so funny. And then they end up, messing up his world. But small details.
And honestly, like one of the best parts too was the fact that his name is Paviter Prabhakar. Spider-Man India. So it is Spider-Man India.
Okay.
But like that was his like Peter Parker name. But like I loved the vibe of that world. Like Borderline might have been my favorite.
The art style?
Yes.
So beautiful. So beautiful.
So
I wanted
good.
to be there more.
Yeah, and we were there for a little bit of time.
Yeah.
Guys, think back to that moment. What were you thinking when you saw that giant hole tear into their universe? Like, I had no idea what to think. Like, you know, like, did you guys think it was some ominous foreshadowing? Or were you like, well, this is what happens when the Spot runs amok. He creates another Spot.
I thought it was just the Spot. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know how to feel about the Spot. Bringing it back to the Spot.
Yeah.
I love the origin story. I love how he got darker and deeper, and he sounded angrier, and he sounded like a serial killer towards the end.
So
and
scared.
He became like someone I actually was scared about. Like I think the Spot, the Spot might kill people in this.
Yeah.
Soon. So I think them being able to actually get this character, who I'm assuming the Spot is probably from the comics, potentially.
Yeah.
I'm assuming
I'm
this is not just like a new thought, and that it's now like center stage. Like, bravo, fantastic. I would never have thought. I thought he was a throwaway character at the beginning of this movie, and I was like, oh, here we go. Like,
yeah.
I don't even care about this. And then he became like the big bad. Who would have thought? Honestly, I didn't.
Yeah, like we saw the Vulture and then the Spot, and we're like, okay, now it's Miguel's time to shine. That's kind of what we're getting at.
And on that note, I do want to see more villains in
More
Beyond the
villains?
Spider-Verse. Yes.
No, we have enough characters.
Because the fact that we
enough.
only had the Vulture and the Spot in this, it goes to show, like, in the first movie, right, we had so many more villains. Like, I want those villains, not the same ones, but, like, more of the villains to come across. Like, if we're going to go crazy with the multiverse, right, the Spider-Verse, I just want to see every, like, different versions of villains coming through. Like, even if it's not like a major plot point, like them just handling them in addition to handling the Spot, like I could see the Spot like summoning these villains across the universes, and that being like part of them like having to deal with like all these different versions like colliding in like an epic battle. Like, if anything, right, like because it's called Beyond the Spider-Verse, it's definitely, maybe we get Deadpool in this, who knows, breaking the fourth wall. But it's gonna be the thing where I would like to see more, because like, right, I am all, going back to Miguel, I like villains. Like, I want to see more. Like, I want to see the heroes being challenged. And yes, not to say the Spot isn't challenging enough, right, because he's obviously grown to this multi-universal threat that he's not enough. But I do want to see like maybe him, right, being so powerful, using the other villains as pawns, basically, like to do the fighting for him.
I would love for more villains. I agree with that.
What?
And I want them all different styles, because that Da Vinci Vulture
yeah.
was awesome. Was so cool. Like, you know what? Go wild. Give me a 1990, 1992 Amazing Spider-Man cartoon Rhino. The classic all gray suit, and have him face off against Spider Noir or something. Like, everybody facing off against a like classic villain out of their like core group. That would be amazing. Like, give me some Electro, give me some Shocker, go wild with these, get like super creative. Have Lego, like have a Lego
oh my
set
God.
come
How
out of
could
nowhere.
I forget that was,
Yeah.
I gasp.
I want to see it all. Like, you know what? Bring me back the live action.
Okay, whoa.
Anything.
Well, this is where I was going to ask if they threw in live action footage outside of those weird like thought bubbles that they had when they were like showing off the different universes. Like, if they straight up brought up back Tobey Maguire and Tom Holland, like, would you be like, yeah, like fist pumping, or would you be like, come on? Is this like a Happy Feet situation where the penguins suddenly were involved with humans?
I think it would be really funny if they brought, is it Alfred Molina who played
Yes.
Doc Ock in Spider-Man 2? Like
Yes.
if they like, if the Spot brought him and he's like, Peter, you know, like his like classic thing.
Yeah.
And then he's like, oh, like this one's friendly. And he like pushes him back,
Oh,
you know,
God.
and like brings out another Doc Ock.
Yeah.
Like that type of game. I don't want them fighting,
Okay.
but you know, get silly. You know, I think that would be, honestly, they are super creative as a team. Keep going. I just want more.
So, did you ever watch the Venom movies, Matt? Like, did you know that was a Venom reference? So, were you like,
No, I
who is
didn't.
this Asian lady?
Yeah, I had no idea.
Okay, that was from Venom. Did you find out later, or are you still?
I found out later.
Okay, you were like, who was that?
It's
person?
canon.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
It's
Venom is
canon to the
so
Sony universe.
bad. You know what? We're gonna say all this, and all who's gonna show up is just gonna be freaking Craven. The new Craven is
Yeah.
gonna show up in this movie, and that's gonna be the only
but the
live
Spider-Man, Marvel Spider-Man 2 Craven, right? Not Craven the Hunter Craven.
No, I think it's gonna be Craven the Hunter Craven.
Oh, that's unfortunate then.
Yeah, what is his name? Aaron Taylor Johnson or something? He's probably gonna. I might have butchered that name. I'm sorry, audience.
He
but-
like he looks the part.
Oh,
He looks awesome.
he
And
does.
honestly, that
Are
new
you-
trailer, just a side row,
Are
it
you
looks
gonna go?
brutal,
Are you gonna watch
but
it?
it looks like I'm gonna watch the rest of the Sony universe just so I can watch it. Like that
Man.
that
He
movie
needs to
looks
Venom-
awesome.
understand, just like he has to go back to
No.
Venom. He has to go
Morbin
back to
time
Venom,
is
let there be
never no,
carnage.
no.
I just want to do it. I just want to do it. I'm gonna be in such a Spider-Man mood this
He's getting
fall.
trapped
That's
in the
true.
web.
Ah,
He's going
Yeah.
into the Spider-Verse, if you will.
yeah.
No, he's going beyond the
100%.
Spider-Verse.
Okay.
Oh,
God. Any favorite quotes? Favorite quotes from the movie, or like highlighted quotes? I've quoted this movie a lot. It's almost as if I've seen this movie like 1,000 times, but I haven't.
how many times have you seen it? Just once?
Well, just once.
Okay.
I'm gonna buy the Blu-ray. I'm gonna buy it.
I'll say one because I don't have too many that come to mind just yet because we've been saying a bunch of them.
Yeah.
I loved when Lego Spider-Man or Lego Peter Parker like calls in and says like, hey, I think we have a problem. And Miguel's like, thanks, Lego Peter Parker or Lego Spider-Man. You've always been my best man.
Yeah.
And like whatever that line is, I butchered it. But like whatever that line is, I thought that was so funny. Just like in that little Daily Bugle Lego set.
I
so
think
good.
I think the line was, "You've always been one of the best of us," or something. Like it was
something like that, yeah.
It was something like that. Like that was pretty funny. And yeah.
I don't remember the quotes, but the exchanges I liked the most were after the rooftop barbecue and like Gwen leaves, right? And then the dad leaves, the exchange between Miles
The mom
and
and
his mom. Just like
for
that
ice in his
combination.
game.
Yeah. Just like that combination. Then Miles be like, no one says that, Mom. Like, no one says that anymore.
Or ever.
Or ever. And then the exchange between Peter and Miguel when they like the first lead up when they first
Yeah.
meet him and they're coming down.
Oh my god. And he
And-
says he calls him Dio.
Yeah, and that like combination, like those two interactions were the most memorable for me because it's that like it's the showing the juxtaposition between these characters and it just being hilarious with like, oh yeah, these people talk this way, but these people talk this other way, and it's just hilarious because it's like, do they understand each other? I mean, I guess, but there's some like a little bit of cringe there, but it's still funny.
Oh my god. Literally when he called him Dio and like said something like, yo, you know, I don't know, Dio. And then he's like, yeah, I speak Spanish to Gwen to like look cool. I was like, no! Because like it was so kind of cringe, especially since we learned like earlier that he has like a C in Spanish or something. Like in the beginning of it, which I thought was even more hilarious. He's like, yeah, I'm going to flex what I know. But yeah, Alex, those are great shout outs. Those are pretty great. A lot of emotions in this one. Did anyone cry other than me? I cried. You didn't cry?
I didn't. No.
No. Okay.
I
Alex?
think there was a strong moment. I know, surprisingly, it was at the beginning when Gwen is leaving her dad, like at that moment, like you see him like going through, like it's first person, perspective going through the rubble
with the gun. Yeah, and he has the gun on her.
And then you know like who it is, and eventually he like tells her to freeze and to like, and then he swaps over to the cop speech,
the Miranda rights.
Yeah, exactly. It being like you have the right to remain silent, like anything you say can and will be used against you. Like that exchange, and Gwen just being like, can't you, like, why do you have to be a cop right now? Like, can't you just be my dad? And like the eventual like build up to her, Spider-Woman coming down and Miguel giving her the like bracelet like transporter, and just that whole thing, and her like looking back and like seeing him so like dejected, and then being like tangled up right in the like net that Miguel like traps him in.
Yeah,
it's like so heartbreaking, because you could see, based on the previous scenes at the very beginning, that they obviously care for each other, but then like them splitting up like that got me, like that, like not brought me to tears, but like I was on the brink.
There was humidity in like one eye.
Yeah. I was like, man, like did someone open up the ceiling? Like, what's going on?
Yeah. There were like the parental and child interactions just always get me. Always. And except for in The Flash, surprisingly. I was dry as a bone in The Flash, but that movie was kind of a wild ride. But
it's more of a comedy.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I think that might have been what it was for me. But in Spider-Verse, it was just a lot of emotions, and I was just tearing up a lot. Like, not full on cry, like a kind of thing, which is, I've done it before in a movie theater. But yeah, I just, felt all the feels. So, okay, you guys both said that you want even more villains for Beyond the Spider-Verse. Anything else on your wish list?
I would love to see more worlds if there's a chance for that.
I think I'm on board with that.
I think they've shown through this movie they can bring it. They can bring these different settings. Like the one that he's in now is like that green background. It kind of looks like there's just fires everywhere, helicopters like looming, and you're like, okay,
it's like Gotham.
That's not a great place to go.
Yeah.
But I could see from the very beginning, maybe he getting rescued and they like jump to another dimension, and I like, let's go to Spider-Punk's. Like, I love his art style. I'm interested to see what if everything is like that. And then Miles Morales is kind of the contrast to that world. So like, I would love to see that. Go to some of these other like people's homes, just like to see what that looks like. I think it would be really cool. I would be down for that.
A 3-hour runtime.
That's your request, to get it all in, get it all beefy.
Yeah, in similar fashion, right? Like obviously there won't be a fourth one, or they haven't announced there'd be a fourth one, but it seems like it'll wrap up in this trilogy. Like, make it as long as it needs to be. Like if there needs to be slow parts, like keep those in. Like, don't care about the runtime. Like, if this is a long movie, like let it be long. Like, it needs to like cover all the bases to like get that character development out, the plot development out, and also because it is an ending. And I think this is one of those stories where, similar to maybe not Lord of the Rings extended edition trilogy, but it's earned its runtime. I feel like a lot happens in these stories. There's a lot of ground to cover. And, if they can get it done right without, overworking by the animators part, like keep everything in. I love it. The longer I can keep watching it, the better.
Yeah, Disney just released Avatar Way of the Water, and that was like over 3 hours long. So like we can do with a over 3 hour animated Spider-Man movie. Maybe we'll get a little bit more interactions with Mayday, Parker, and Miles, because he never held the baby, or did he? I don't know. I don't remember him holding the baby. Honestly though, that baby was hilarious. Like her little cap being her spider face, and just like, God, there's just so many gems. Like I could go on and on, but I should wrap it up. Are there any final words for this peer review before I ask you for your final recommendation? If it wasn't clear.
So this isn't the final recommendation.
No, this is not the final. There's any last minute notes that you didn't get to gush about? Nothing. I mean, I could go on like the long, but we gotta keep it tight. So, final recommendation: I am gonna wholeheartedly, with my body and soul, recommend you go see this movie. Go watch the first one. Go watch this one. Go watch the next one. 100% recommend for me.
Wow, that's ambitious. Even before the next one's out.
Yeah, go watch it. I know in my heart.
I recommend this for all ages. I think it doesn't really matter your kind of background, or even if you don't care about Spider-Man. As long as as long as you don't,
if you like a good
him,
story,
if you like a good story and you appreciate good animation, like this has it. And it doesn't matter how old you are, right? Because of the story, you know, I think it hits like all the bases. Like you could be, you know, a Gwen or Miles age, right? Like you could be in your teen years, and maybe this really touches base with you. You know, you have that, you know, girl you're crushing on, that boy you're crushing on, and maybe you can touch base, you know, connect with those characters there. Or maybe you can be, you know, someone like Miguel. You know, maybe you're older in life, maybe you've lost a child, you know, heaven forbid that actually be the case, but maybe you feel some sort of connection on that level to say, right, like you've gone through loss. And I think it, you know, it runs the gamut of being able to connect to this because of how many different stories there are and the fact that they're all relatable, and also it just being a good movie in terms of, right, quality production, writing, and everything. So yes, it's a recommend.
And I'm a third recommend. Like, this is a great movie. Don't stick to the negatives, stick to the positives. We're all very positive on this thing. And this is something where, like, I'm a big fan of superheroes. Even outside that, though, this is just a good movie. It's not a good superhero movie. It's not a good animated movie. It's a good movie. It stands up to any other movie that's coming out this summer. If you have a chance, go see it in theaters. And, you know, if you can get to, like, I don't know, an IMAX or something, I'm sure that would be like awesome.
Yes.
I didn't have that. If I could, I might do it, but I don't know if it's possible. But yeah, go watch it. It's great. It has a lot for everybody. If you are a fan of superhero movies,
even better.
One of my favorites of all time. Like I think MCU is great, but I definitely think that these movies have been better, and that's just my thought on it. So if you like those, you're gonna love this and have fun. It's great.
My new number one Spider-Man movie for my personal list.
Nice. What is there?
So this episode of Peer Review is here. If you want to check out any other episodes of Peer Review, you know, we talk about video games like God of War Ragnarok. We talk about other movies like Shang-Chi. We have a whole plethora of episodes there for you in our backlog. So please like and subscribe and, you know, keep up with our updates. We'll come out with a few more peer reviews hopefully this year about things that we've all experienced together so we can talk about it with you. And thanks for listening. Goodbye.